I knew something was wrong the second Ryan Mitchell started lurking around the HR document portal like a shark smelling blood. The guy wasn't subtle about it either. He'd hover near Lisa Rodriguez's desk just long enough to pretend he accidentally glimpsed someone's compensation package, then whistle under his breath. Wow, didn't realize we were paying that much for legacy functions. Legacy, that's what he called us. Anyone over 45 who didn't worship at the altar of Slack and didn't think every problem could be solved with machine learning. My name's Patrick Sullivan. I'm 48 years old, and I've been keeping TechFlow Industries systems running for 13 years, while guys like Ryan came and went with their PowerPoint presentations. I wasn't surprised when I caught him in the server logs one night, 11:47 p.m., pulling metadata on employment contracts. My name was right there in his search history. So was the clause I knew would choke him if he bothered to read past the executive summary, Section 7D. A little gem I'd negotiated back in 2009 when nobody cared what senior systems architects were entitled to, as long as the servers stayed up and the client stayed happy. I never talked about it, never bragged, but I kept my copies, the PDF, the original signed document, and a notarized scan on my personal drive. You don't survive 13 years in tech as someone pushing 50 without keeping every receipt, legal and otherwise. By now, if you're listening to this story, hit that subscribe button. Seriously, 98% of people watch without subscribing, and it helps the team that puts these together. Anyway, back to Ryan. He strutted through our floor like he owned the patents, the people, and the payroll. Would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. Half his innovative restructuring ideas were repackaged memos I'd written 4 years ago when I proposed a modular deployment system that could cut rollout time by 35%. He dismissed it then as too conservative. Now he slapped a new label on it, adaptive scaling methodology, and presented it to the board like he'd invented fire. I didn't say a word, didn't need to, but I noticed something. Every time he talked about optimizing cost centers, his eyes lingered just a bit too long on my department's budget line. Not DevOps, not infrastructure, but systems architecture. Mine. The thing is, Ryan didn't understand how deep I was embedded in the tech stack. He saw senior architect and thought legacy code monkey. What he didn't realize was that my systems didn't just run functions, they ran entire client environments, including custom parameter configurations that required full SLA compliance. Pull me out, and the dominoes wouldn't just fall. They'd crash into legal operations and federal compliance, because one of our biggest clients was a defense contractor. I'd signed NDAs so old they had actual wax seals. It would have been impressive if it weren't so stupid. Ryan thought he was hunting dead weight. What he was really doing was poking a live wire. I could tell the exact moment he started asking HR about inactive or unsigned contract renewals that he thought he'd found a shortcut to trimming payroll. He thought mine was one of them. There was just one problem with his plan. TechFlow's legal team wasn't incompetent, and at least one paralegal had been around long enough to remember when I personally flagged issues with clause visibility in our internal system. That clause, the one Ryan was now pretending he hadn't seen, had teeth, real ones. If HR failed to issue an updated contract by a specific date, and if I didn't receive formal notice of that update being delayed, my entire equity package matured fully, immediately, retroactively. No questions, no appeals, no takesy-backsies. But here's the real irony. I never wanted it to come to this. I didn't hate TechFlow. I liked the work, even enjoyed some of the chaos. But Ryan turned what should have been a professional relationship into a generational war. He looked at my silence and saw weakness. He looked at my age and saw obsolescence. He looked at my name on that spreadsheet and thought, easy target. All I had to do was wait. Then I asked Lisa at the holiday dinner if they'd ever sent my contract update. She smiled that HR smile and said, "We sent it last week." Ryan said he'd deliver it to you personally. I set down my fork. So I guess he didn't mention why he hid it. By the second week of Q1, our office was thick with that polite tension that hides behind phrases like efficiency review and talent optimization. I didn't need a memo to know what was coming. Ryan had started using his favorite buzzword in meetings, value recalibration. He said it with that MBA smugness, like he'd trademarked the phrase. You could feel him recalibrating the moment he started charting who built what and how quickly it could be handed off to outsourced teams or AI automation. Then came the whispers. I overheard Michelle Davis from Client Ops mention that Ryan had asked how much of our back-end infrastructure could theoretically be transitioned to an external firm with lower overhead costs. Not if it could be done, but how soon. I was polite when I asked her to forward me that email thread. She hesitated, then did it. The word legacy appeared 4 times, twice in bold. That same day, legal pinged me on Slack. Nothing dramatic, just a casual inquiry from Andrew Foster. Hey Patrick, can you confirm if Section 7D is still tied to your current role or to functional output? Innocent enough on the surface, but I knew better. Legal doesn't go clause diving without someone giving them a reason, and nobody gives legal a reason, unless they're setting up for a soft layoff. So I blocked out my weekend and went line by line through my entire employment file. Read every word, every comma, every subclause and attachment. The retention provision wasn't just active, it had been re-verified during our last acquisition review in 2019. Not only that, but the automatic equity multiplier had clicked up again due to hitting my 10-year milestone. Ryan clearly hadn't done that math. It wasn't buried in fine print. It was right there in black and white. He just hadn't done his homework. Monday morning, I passed him in the hallway. He had that spreadsheet swagger, AirPods in, probably listening to some podcast about scaling leadership in disruptive environments. He nodded, like I wasn't 3 feet away from his professional collapse. I kept my tone conversational. You looking to restructure the systems side, he blinked, pulling out one earbud like I was interrupting something sacred. Not personally, he said, all polished and rehearsed. But yes, we're evaluating legacy positions, nothing set in stone. Legacy again, like we were expired milk in the back of the office fridge. I gave him a polite nod. Just make sure HR stays in the loop. Of course, he said, distracted, already putting the earbud back in. Section 7D needs proper acknowledgement. That got his attention. His head tilted just enough to show me I'd touched something he didn't quite understand. You mean that old retention clause? Exactly. There was a flicker in his eyes, like he remembered the clause but couldn't place why it mattered. I didn't explain. Let him dig. Let him think. Let him wonder what he'd missed. He didn't know I'd already printed backup copies, had them reviewed by my lawyer over the weekend, and dropped them in my safe deposit box. I wasn't being paranoid. I was being prepared. That's the difference between veterans and visionaries. One reads white papers about disruption. The other reads the actual contracts. Ryan thought he was cutting fat from the org chart. But what he didn't realize, what nobody ever tells these hotshot MBAs is that some of those legacy roles are actually load-bearing walls. You rip them out and the whole structure comes down. But sure, let's talk about value recalibration. I could wait. By the time they figured out what Ryan had overlooked, the damage would already be done, and there wouldn't be a single Slack thread that could undo it. The next few days were a masterclass in corporate theater. Ryan started scheduling strategic alignment meetings with department heads. Translation. He was building his case for the layoffs he'd already decided on. Michelle mentioned he'd asked her to document which systems could be modernized with third-party solutions. Andrew from legal got pulled into a session about optimizing legacy contract obligations. I watched it all happen from my cubicle, calm as a lake before a storm. My daughter texted me that afternoon asking if I could cover her spring semester housing deposit early, $3,000. 2 years ago, that would have stressed me out for weeks. Now I just transferred the money and told her not to worry about it, because I knew what was coming. And more importantly, I knew what Ryan didn't. The beautiful thing about Section 7D wasn't just the payout structure. It was the timing mechanism. The clause didn't activate on termination. It activated on contract suppression without proper documentation. Meaning the moment Ryan decided to hide my renewal instead of delivering it, he'd already triggered the countdown. Every day that passed without me receiving that contract was another day of compound liability. Ryan thought he was being clever, building his termination case slowly. What he was actually doing was running up the bill. Wednesday morning, I got another text from my daughter. Her roommate's parents were taking them out to dinner at some fancy steakhouse downtown. Could she go? Of course she could. When you're 19 and in college, every meal that isn't ramen noodles is a gift from the universe. That same afternoon, Ryan called an all-hands meeting to discuss organizational efficiency and future-focused restructuring. The conference room was packed, people standing along the walls. He had a PowerPoint deck that probably took him 3 hours to build and would take him 20 minutes to deliver. Slide 1, optimizing for tomorrow's challenges. Slide 2, legacy systems versus modern solutions. Slide 3, a chart showing the cost-benefit analysis of keeping traditional roles versus streamlined operations. I wasn't mentioned by name, but I didn't need to be. Everyone in that room knew what traditional roles meant. It meant anyone who remembered when servers were physical machines you could actually touch. He talked about embracing change, about how the company needed to evolve or get left behind by more agile competitors. He used the phrase digital transformation 6 times in 15 minutes. The crowd nodded along, some more enthusiastically than others. Then he opened the floor for questions. Silence. The kind that makes you wonder if everyone's internet connection just died simultaneously. Finally, Michelle raised her hand. What about client relationships? Some of our accounts specifically request certain team members for their projects. Ryan smiled, that MBA smile. Great question. We're developing transition plans to ensure continuity while upgrading our service delivery model. Translation, we'll figure it out later. Andrew from legal shifted in his seat. I caught his eye for half a second. He looked uncomfortable, like someone who'd been asked to provide legal cover for something he wasn't sure was entirely legal. After the meeting, people filed out in clusters, whispering among themselves. I took my time gathering my notebook, letting the room empty. Ryan was still at the front, unplugging his laptop, looking satisfied with his performance. Nice presentation, I said as I passed him. He looked up, slightly startled. Thanks. Change is never easy, but it's necessary. Absolutely. Change is the only constant in tech. He nodded, probably thinking I was finally getting on board with his vision. I walked back to my desk, checked my personal email, and found what I'd been expecting. A message from my lawyer, contract review complete. Section 7D analysis attached. Timeline calculations included. Call when ready to proceed. I glanced at the calendar on my monitor. 7 business days since my original renewal date. 3 days until Ryan's suppression strategy became irreversibly expensive. I closed the email, opened my project management dashboard, and got back to work. Just another day at the office, maintaining the systems that kept TechFlow's biggest clients happy. For now, the steak was overcooked, the wine overpriced, and the mood artificially cheerful, like we were all extras in Ryan's quarterly performance review fantasy. TechFlow's annual holiday dinner was held at the Meridian Country Club downtown, all brass fixtures and leather chairs that creaked when you shifted your weight. Ryan stood at the far end of the private dining room, telling some story about predictive analytics, working the crowd like he was running for office. Meanwhile, I sat 2 seats down from Lisa Rodriguez, nursing a club soda and watching Ryan perform his visionary leader routine. My contract update still hadn't arrived, but here I was anyway. The table buzzed with typical holiday party chatter, UQ, Q4 projections, client gossip, whose Peloton class got canceled due to weather. Lisa leaned toward me with that practiced HR smile. So Patrick, did you get your contract renewal yet? Casual question, like she didn't already assume I was probably getting phased out. We sent it last week, she continued. Ryan said he'd hand deliver it to you personally. That was the moment, the pivot point. I could have smiled, could have shrugged it off. Instead, I set my fork down gently, like I was about to say grace. So I guess he didn't mention why he hid it. Silence, real silence, not the fake kind between team-building exercises. The kind of silence that scrapes a room raw. Lisa's smile didn't just fade, it disappeared completely. The guy next to her stopped mid-sentence about his vacation plans. Across the table, Ryan's jaw locked. Just a tiny twitch, but I caught it clear as day. I didn't raise my voice, didn't stand up. I just reached into my jacket, pulled out a folded envelope, and placed it carefully between the dessert menus. Cream-colored paper, blue ink signature, dated and notarized. I won't be renewing, I said, effective immediately. I didn't need to drop a microphone. The envelope did that for me. Ryan reached for his wine glass, then put it back down. Too late for liquid courage, too early for damage control, and the beautiful part. He still didn't know what he'd set in motion. Not yet, but Lisa did. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her eyes darted from Ryan to me to the envelope like it was ticking. You could feel the air pressure change. Someone coughed nervously. Someone else grabbed a dinner roll like carbs would make this normal again. The head of product development leaned back slightly, quietly moving his chair an inch farther from Ryan's blast radius. Smart man. Ryan cleared his throat. Let's not be dramatic here, he said with a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. I looked at him and answered flatly, I'm not being dramatic. That's more your specialty. Then I went back to cutting my steak. 1 bite, 2 bites, nobody else picked up their silverware. There's power in restraint, the kind that makes people realize they're witnessing something they can't stop. The worst part for Ryan, he still had no idea what Section 7D actually meant. He didn't know what came next, but I did, and by morning so would everyone else. By 8:15 the next morning, my ID badge was deactivated. Not by them, by me. No farewell email, no goodbye Slack message with crying, laughing emojis. Just a clean server-side removal and a pre-scheduled auto-reply. This inbox is no longer monitored. Quiet as a whisper, twice as final. Ryan didn't notice until his morning sync meeting. He asked Michelle Davis why a critical patch hadn't gone live yet. She said because Patrick's systems are version locked, and he didn't leave the deployment keys. He blinked, waved it off like swatting a fly. We'll sort it out, then legal showed up. 2 suits from compliance appeared at his office before lunch, folders in hand, expressions tight like they'd just opened a cursed file cabinet. One of them, Andrew Foster, had a post-it note stuck to the front of his packet. All it said was 7D confirmed. Ryan actually laughed when he read it, like it was some kind of sitcom gag, that old clause. Come on. That was before the last restructuring. No way that still applies. Andrew didn't laugh. It's still binding. The employment packet was never amended. Ryan's jaw stiffened. But he didn't give proper notice. He didn't need to. You suppressed delivery of his contract update. That counts as non-renewal without documented notice. Ryan leaned back like someone had punched him through his ergonomic chair. He's bluffing. There's no way but there was a way. Because back in 2009, when nobody was paying attention to retention clauses for senior engineers, especially guys approaching 50, they'd given me leverage in the form of a nuclear option. Section 7D. If a contract update gets suppressed or isn't delivered with proper documentation, all stock grants, loyalty bonuses, and milestone equity convert to immediate payout. The number 8.5 million. Not in maybe someday performance shares, but real immediate liquid assets. Ryan muttered, "He can't prove I didn't deliver it." Lisa answered from the doorway. She'd been standing there the whole time, pale as printer paper. "Actually, he can." He asked me directly at the dinner. Ryan opened his mouth to say something, then realized he couldn't. Not when half the leadership team remembered exactly how I'd phrased it. Not when HR remembered, not when 2 other directors had been sitting at the same table. He slumped in his chair. "Fine, so it's enforceable. Can't we cap it somehow? Renegotiate?" Andrew shook his head. "The clause doesn't include mitigation language." "You missed the window," Ryan snapped. "This is ridiculous. We can't just hand over 8 million because of some paperwork technicality." Andrew replied, "Not cruel, just resigned. It's not a technicality, it's a contract." "You're the one who didn't read it." Outside that office, the whispers started again, only this time they weren't wondering if layoffs were coming. They were wondering what else Ryan had screwed up. I wasn't there to hear any of it. I was sitting in a quiet coffee shop across town, laptop open, responding to 3 different job offers that had appeared in my inbox overnight. Apparently, word travels fast when a senior architect walks away from a major tech firm under mysterious circumstances. They thought silence meant surrender. But silence in the right hands is a loaded contract clause, and mine had just detonated. By day 3, the CFO looked like he'd aged 10 years and been living on nothing but energy drinks and regret. I wasn't there to see it, but word traveled fast through the industry grapevine. Accounting had been pulled into what was being called internally the sinkhole. Ryan had demanded a complete revaluation of my equity package. "There has to be a way to minimize this," he kept saying, pacing circles during emergency finance calls. He wasn't even a VP. He didn't manage teams, which was true. I didn't manage teams. I managed the systems that made teams unnecessary. The problem wasn't just the 8.5 million. Section 7D had language most contracts didn't include, a small line blessed by legal back in 2009 that tied payouts not to original stock grant dates but to performance-adjusted multipliers. Meaning every successful product cycle tied to my architecture had triggered retroactive increases. They didn't just owe me the base equity. They owed me compound appreciation and dividends spanning 13 years of system deployments. Ryan never even understood. Meanwhile, cracks started forming where Ryan had never thought to look: client confidence. Our biggest account, Western Logistics, sent a terse email asking who would be managing Patrick Sullivan's optimization protocols for their Tier 2 rollouts. There was no answer, because the truth was nobody knew how. The configuration scripts I'd built weren't just back-end logic, they were adaptive engines tied to real-time compliance windows and SLA-based constraint management. You couldn't just hand that off to some contractor from Bangalore, not unless you wanted 2 weeks of cascade failures and breach of contract lawsuits. Still, Ryan tried. He hired a boutique consulting firm from Austin to reverse engineer my systems. They delivered their assessment 48 hours later. Non-modular architecture, high dependency on undocumented legacy parameters, recommend complete infrastructure rebuild. Translation: good luck, genius. 4 days in, our second largest client, Pinnacle Manufacturing, paused their Phase 2 integration. Same reason, same radio silence from TechFlow's technical team. Then came the internal email that started unraveling everything. A thread from sales accidentally CC'd to the entire operations team. If Sullivan's out, are we renegotiating deployment SLAs across the board? Nobody replied. Ryan couldn't reply. Because the second someone answered that question officially, the house of cards became a liability report. The kind that shows up in quarterly forecasts and scares away funding rounds. The CFO tried one last desperate angle, challenging the equity multiplier calculation, but legal wouldn't budge. The clause was clean. The milestones were documented. The timestamps were legally bulletproof. The only thing left was cutting the check. That same afternoon, a recruiter I knew from Apex Systems texted me, "You're trending inside TechFlow like some kind of corporate legend." I smiled, not because I wanted revenge, but because legends don't need to explain themselves. They just haunt the people who underestimated them. And Ryan Mitchell was about to discover exactly how cold a professional haunting could be. The board meeting wasn't supposed to be historic. It was supposed to be routine quarterly review, the same tired metrics and projections Ryan had been peddling since his promotion. Instead, it opened with silence as the internal audit team wheeled in a projector and dimmed the lights. Slide 1 appeared, contract suppression incident, summary overview. Nobody spoke. Slide 2 followed, cleaner and colder. Section 7D minus triggered payout value, 8.5 million, verified by legal. Ryan shifted in his seat. The chair leaned forward, reading glasses low on his nose. "You suppressed his contract update." Ryan's voice cracked slightly as he tried to maintain control. "I didn't realize the clause was still active." Across the table, the general counsel didn't even look up from his notes. "He asked you about it directly. You said you'd handle it." The next slide landed like a hammer. Client impact assessment, 2 major accounts on hold. Western Logistics, Pinnacle Manufacturing. Sales had tried to spin it for weeks, temporary delays, internal bandwidth restructuring, but the truth was written in SLA breach notices and halted integration timelines. And now it was projected in black and white for every board member to see. Then came the real damage. Slide 4. RFP award, Apex Systems, formerly TechFlow partner, now leading optimization deployment for Western Logistics. The room went dead quiet. Western Logistics wasn't just a client, it was the pipeline. The one TechFlow had spent 2 fiscal years developing. The one Ryan had called mission critical in his last earnings call. This silence wasn't awkward, it was surgical. A board member finally spoke, soft and cutting. "So we lost the rollout to the person you forced out, the person whose expertise you dismissed, the architect whose systems you couldn't replace. Is that accurate?" Ryan opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The general counsel, now looking up, added one final note, and per Section 7D, "We remain liable for full payout." Interest began accruing on day 10. Nobody moved. The chair closed his folder slowly and folded his hands. "Ryan, you've cost this company its most valuable deployment asset, 2 major accounts, and an $8.5 million payout, all while misleading both legal and HR during an active renewal cycle. Tell me, what exactly did you think would happen?" Ryan tried again. "It was an outdated clause, I assumed." "That was your first mistake," the chair interrupted. "You assumed," she read. For the rest of the meeting, Ryan barely spoke. No one asked for his input. When the conversation shifted to damage control and internal restructuring, he sat there shrinking by the minute. And when the session adjourned, the chair didn't shake his hand, didn't even look at him. Because the most dangerous person in any company isn't the one who speaks the loudest. It's the one who reads the fine print, walks out quietly and leaves the consequences behind like a ticking clock, and Ryan had just heard it strike midnight. 2 weeks later, Apex Systems updated their leadership page. No fanfare, no press release, no inspirational blog post from their CEO. Just a quiet addition under strategic leadership, Patrick Sullivan, principal systems architect. No headshot, no bio paragraph about revolutionary vision. Just my name, my title, and 13 years of institutional knowledge that couldn't be replicated, automated, or outsourced. TechFlow didn't issue any announcements either, but their silence wasn't graceful. HR circulated a mandatory internal memo titled Updated Standards for Contract Renewal Protocols and Documentation Handling. Buried in the corporate speak was an admission without an apology. All contract clauses would now be reviewed quarterly, suppression attempts must be logged in writing, and legal would oversee all HR renewal processes going forward. A half-hearted bandage on a self-inflicted wound. As for Ryan, he wasn't fired. Of course not. Guys like that rarely are. He was resigned. New title, Director of Strategic Initiatives. Everyone knew that was corporate purgatory with a swivel chair. His calendar emptied overnight. His Slack went dark. The only thing he directed now was the walk from his former corner office to a shared cubicle near the break room. I didn't watch any of it happen. Didn't need to. I never made a public statement. Never posted on LinkedIn. Never leaked the story to TechCrunch. I didn't respond to the awkward text from TechFlow's founder. You were always our backbone. I'm sorry I didn't say it sooner. I didn't need closure. I already had control. My daughter called me that evening from her dorm room. Dad, my roommate's parents heard about some big drama at your old job. Something about a guy who hid contracts and lost millions. Was that real? I smiled, looking out at my apartment's view of downtown Dallas. The $8.5 million had cleared 3 days ago. Tomorrow, I started at Apex Systems with full autonomy over their new optimization platform. I'd already named the project Phoenix because sometimes things need to burn down before they can rise again. Yeah, honey, it was real. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. Are you okay though? Like financially and everything? I laughed, actually laughed. Your tuition's covered through graduation. So is grad school if you want it. And I think I'm gonna finally get that truck I've been talking about. The F-150? The F-150. She squealed with delight. Dad, you're officially a Texas stereotype now. Maybe I was, but I was a Texas stereotype with 8.5 million reasons to smile and the professional reputation to match. Because real leverage doesn't come from shouting, door slamming, or public meltdowns. It comes from understanding the system better than the people who think they designed it, from reading every clause they skipped over, from staying quiet long enough that they forget you're listening until suddenly you're not, and by then, it's far too late. They spent years mistaking my professionalism for compliance, my experience for obsolescence, my silence for surrender. Turns out, I was just waiting for my equity to mature. And when it did, it paid for a lot more than just my daughter's education and my dream truck. It paid for dignity, it paid for respect, and it paid for the kind of professional vindication that money can't buy. But $8.5 million doesn't hurt either. The best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting ahead while your enemies destroy themselves with their own arrogance. In the corporate world, the quiet ones who read the fine print will always outlast the loud ones who only read the executive summary.